it's funny, there's such a misconception about us because we are an AI detection software, and people think that we must be anti-AI. But we love AI. Like, we use it all the time. I use it. I'm the director of marketing for this company, and like I use generative AI every day to help leverage my content creation. I think the distinguishing factor is like I think AI is genius. I think it's such a great, helpful tool. Where I think people go wrong with it is I think people get lazy, and I think that people aim to replace rather than leverage. And so I think that if you're using these tools in a way that's going to like make your content better, make your process faster, and sort of like leverage what you already have and amplify it to make yourself better and to make yourself smarter, then that's great. Where I think that people get it wrong a lot of the time is to create shortcuts and replace themselves with something that's not as good.
Welcome to the Agents of Change, the podcast experience you've been waiting for your entire marketing career. Search, social, mobile, AI, blockchain, and neuromarketing. These are the Agents of Change, and so are you. Digital marketing success awaits, and your transformation begins now.
Welcome to another episode of the Agents of Change podcast, the podcast that's here to help you reach and engage more of your ideal clients online and generate more business. My name's Rich Brooks. I'm the host of the show. This is episode 512, powered by Flight New Media. The other day I was having lunch with a friend and the topic of AI came up. This happens to me a lot, actually. He mentioned that he had a recent article he submitted to Forbes rejected because generative AI was detected in the work. He admitted that he had used it to help with parts of the article, but was still surprised that they had checked and rejected. Then just yesterday, I was talking to a client about a conversion rate optimization situation on his website, and he asked if I wanted to come on his podcast again to talk about the role of AI in his industry. We discussed generative AI or Gen AI and hallucinations, and I shared with him the story of the lawyer who used ChatGPT to create a law brief, but then the judge discovered that none of the cases cited in the brief were actually real. ChatGPT had hallucinated, had made up those cases to make the brief better. The lawyer didn't realize AI could lie. Insert your lawyer jokes here. He has now been sanctioned along with his law firm. My client/friend then told me a similar story from his industry about an article that had made the rounds in some reputable scientific journals until it was removed and redacted because of inaccuracies that were found. Again, ChatGPT was to blame. As content creators, the promise of Gen AI is mind-blowing. But we also have to be very concerned about issues like bias, copyright, and hallucinations. I recently heard that a lot of authors, and I hope you could hear those finger quotes, were putting out books on Amazon Kindle that were completely written by AI. With almost no cost involved, there's a very low barrier to entry, and then you can just collect any profits you make. Unfortunately, a couple of those books were on foraging mushrooms. Well, one hallucination from AI could lead to a lot more than just a mushroom-induced hallucination. It could lead to death. Now, that's an extreme example, but many of us create content for tools or services that could have a negative outcome if we just let generative AI create unchecked content. This is why there always needs to be a human in the loop. While the latest tools are getting better at being accurate and not using hallucinations to close the gaps, and even some tools like Bard and Bing GPT are pulling resources so that we can check the accuracy of their statements, there's still a long way to go. Then, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Google announced that it's looking to prioritize content from first-hand experience. Google has already come out and they said they won't deprioritize content written by AI. They say they don't care if content is written by humans or AI as long as it's high quality and valuable to the user. But this seems like, if not an actual reversal, at least a nuanced change in stance. Because you know what doesn't have first-hand experience? Artificial intelligence. As I look to 2024 and how we here at Flight can improve our offerings and how do we provide more value while being just as or more profitable, AI seems like the obvious lever to pull, but we have to recognize the challenges and problems associated with AI so we can use it not just effectively, but ethically as well. Okay, that was a long-winded way to say we're going to be talking about generative AI today, how it can and should be used for content creation and marketing, and some of the tools that are being used to uncover the use of AI as well. My guest today is a seasoned entrepreneur and marketing professional who founded a successful content marketing agency before shifting her career to the AI detection industry. As the director of marketing and sales at Originality.ai, she leverages her marketing skills to promote cutting-edge AI solutions built for content marketers just like you. Today, we're going to be diving into generative AI and everything AI with Madeleine Lambert. Madeleine, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So it's an interesting career shift from founding a content marketing agency to running marketing for an AI detection company. How did that all come about?
Yeah, well, good question. So basically, my business partner and I had been working in the content marketing agency for quite some time. We had founded it in 2016 and had grown it and had really figured out our audience. And then, we started seeing tools like generative AI tools starting to come out, like Jasper and other tools that do similar things. And so we kind of came to a bit of a fork in the road, and we said, "Hey, there's going to be a wave of problems that come with this. Do we want to do a business shift and offer different, like get in front of it and come up with new products, new offerings? Or do we want to make an exit and then really get in front of the problems that we anticipate?" And so we decided to do that. We were kind of tapped out on our content marketing side or agency side, and we were ready to start over again with something else. And so this seemed like a good pivot.
So you did this with your partner?
So no, not quite. So I was like very involved with the content marketing agency. And then we actually sold it the week that my daughter was born. So I was
nice.
away, in
busy
Canada.
Week.
Yeah, it was a busy week. Yeah. So I was away on maternity leave, and in Canada, we get great leave. We get like a 18 months. So as I was sort of out of office, my business partner had been talking about this for a while and had started basically building this AI tool on models like Jasper, like the GPT-3 models. So I had kind of gotten in front of it. And by the time that I got back from mat leave, he had sort of like launched it and then hired me on as his director of marketing and sales.
Wow. Exciting times. And for my American listeners, they are probably thinking, did she say 18 days? Because that seems like a lot for a maternity leave. But no, it was months, people. It was months. All right. I want to get into some of the ways that we can drive our marketing forward with AI. But first, I'm curious about Originality.ai and what exactly is it that you do there?
Yeah,
what does the company do?
So basically, we equip agencies, writers, contractors, anybody who's really involved with the content creation process with a tool that will help either detect whether generative AI was used to help create the piece of content, or if you're a writer, it will help sort of prove that your work was original if you are aiming to deliver original work, if that's sort of your mandate.
So it's interesting because I've heard stories about students and professionals alike getting their content tagged as AI generated when it wasn't, or at least they said it wasn't. How do people avoid or deal with false positives? Do they need a tool like yours? If they don't have a tool like that, what are their options?
Yeah, it's tough. So unfortunately, and the big backlash that AI content detection faces is that it's always going to have a false positive rate. No matter how you skin the cat, there's always going to be a very, very small percentage of false positives. And that sucks when you're a writer. And we're very, very, very cognizant of that. And we have been on the content marketing agency side of things. So we're extremely cognizant of that and compassionate to that problem. And we've worked very, very hard to reduce that false positive rate as much as possible. But the reality is it's AI, it's a predictive tool. It's always going to be there. And so to sort of get around that, using a tool like ours, we've actually created a plugin specifically for content creators. And this plugin allows you to sort of like submit a link to whoever you're submitting the content to, whether it's teacher or like an employer or a client. You can submit that link and it will give that person the ability to see the creative, sort of like the creation of that piece of content. And so you're going to be very, very easily see whether it was AI generated or not, because you can literally see the person writing. It like takes a screen capture of the person writing and it will do a timestamp of how long this piece of content took. And we all know that if you're spending 4 hours on a piece of content, it's probably original. And if you're doing like 20,000 edits to it, which this plugin will track that, then it's probably original. So that's kind of how we've helped solve for our false positive rate, because it does suck.
Interesting. Yeah. So without giving away any trade secrets, I'm just curious, do you know of any AI tells that your software picks up on? Like the first couple times I use ChatGPT, it's magic. And then after a while, I'm like, it kind of starts to sound the same. And obviously you can do prompts to make it sound differently, but are there some tells that are common right now that you see out there that we should be aware of?
Yeah, it's funny. We get this question all the time. It's like, oh, well, what is it that your AI detector is picking up? And like, I wish we could tell you because it's like, it's AI. It's basically trained itself, right? So we wish that we had more insight on like what exactly it is that it's flagging. But the general understanding is that generative models generative AI will produce content that has like similar sentence lengths, and it will pick up the similarity in word sequences and stuff like that are more common with generative AI.
Yeah, I didn't notice it right away. I did a podcast interview many months ago with ChatGPT, where I posed the questions, got it back, and then used a different piece of AI to do the voices back and forth. And it wasn't until I'd been using it for quite some time, I realized some of the tells of AI. And this was really basic stuff, just like the repeating of the question and then like the posing of certain phrases that it would use multiple times throughout the interview, which admittedly I have my own tells as well, but it was just kind of some funny stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And the tonality is very similar across the board, right? Like it aims to be very neutral and sort of like doesn't have much personality, and
it's safe.
It's safe. Exactly.
Yeah. So moving away from the AI detection piece of it and just kind of thinking about like how AI can help or hurt us as content creators, how do you recommend that we as content creators, as marketers, copywriters, brand ambassadors, what have you, how do we show that there is a human behind the words that we put out there?
Yeah. So here's the thing. It's funny, there's such a misconception about us because we are an AI detection software, and people think that we must be anti-AI, but we love AI. Like we use it all the time. I use it. I'm the director of marketing for this company, and like I use generative AI every day to help leverage my content creation. I think the distinguishing factor is like I think AI is genius. I think it's such a great, helpful tool. Where I think people go wrong with it is I think people get lazy, and I think that people aim to replace rather than leverage. And so I think that if you're using these tools in a way that's going to like make your content better, make your process faster, and sort of like leverage what you already have and amplify it to make yourself better and to make yourself smarter, then that's great. Where I think that people get it wrong a lot of the time is to create shortcuts and replace themselves with something that's not as good.
So many people, copywriters especially, say that AI doesn't have emotional intelligence. It can't tell personal stories. But the flip of this is there are these large language models, and they're filled with other people's personal stories, and certainly a lot of content around writing with emotional intelligence. Can't we just tell AI to create content or create content with emotional intelligence and fake it?
Well, I mean, like, I'm sure you could find some creative prompts that would help with that. But if you've got a brand voice And if you have like a track record of having that consistent brand voice, it's going to be really hard to replicate. And so I don't know, like I think that if you leverage it properly and you're able to allow it to help you create and then hunker down and edit really, really well to have it sort of reflect your brand voice, then all the power to you. But I think people just need to be careful and not aim to replace themselves with these things.
I've started to think about like there's different types of content. Obviously, there's different types of content, but there's the content that's like really critical to your business and your brand. And then there's kind of like the transitory content or the filler content. So I might spend a lot of time on a very important blog post, but then I would use social or AI to create the social post, tweak them a little bit, but just kind of like, that's not as important to me. So I can outsource that fairly easily to AI. I think it's putting that emotional intelligence and telling those personal stories or a case study that you ran into your content that really helps separate it from AI. Because the thing is, I read a lot of people's writings and AI writes better than most people I know. I mean, That's the sad truth of it. Yeah. There are some amazing writers out there like Mike Kim and Ann Hanley and others, but there is this sort of, it brings the bottom up to the middle. But then there's still the people who are going to be able to tell better stories than AI can. Right.
And I do think that AI has like caused a like world of hurt for the writing industry. But I do think that the writing industry has gotten so large and so like overpopulated with sort of like mediocrity that it has helped sort of extract the really, really, really great writers. And unfortunately, the writers that have sort of fallen short have been able to be replaced pretty easily with generative AI. And so I do think that that has benefited writers, some writers, like a very elite cohort of writers. And it's funny, as a client, like I have a couple of really, really great writers, and I'm willing to actually pay them way more now than I was before. So I do think that it has benefited some types of writers that have very, very specific expertise in things.
Many of us, I assume many of my listeners have begun to use generative AI in our content creation, whether it's ideation, developing frameworks for a post, generating social posts, or full-on article creation, which I rail against, but I know there are people out there doing it. One thing that isn't talked about a lot that I'm seeing is the impact of generative AI on SEO, or perhaps the impact of SEO on generative AI. What are your thoughts around SEO when it comes to this AI-generated content?
Yeah, so I think that it's definitely a gray area right now. I think that it's so new and Google doesn't really know what to do yet. But I mean, have you seen the Google update? Most recent one?
Which one is that?
The like most recent big one.
I may have. I mean, I've seen the search experiments that they're running where they're pulling in from Bard and then using citations for some of the results. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about, though.
No, so I haven't had like a full disclosure. I don't know what I'm talking about. No, I'm just joking. Full disclosure. Yeah, I haven't had the chance to dig in too closely, but we are running some studies currently to understand. It appears that this Google update has negatively impacted sites that use a lot of content that was AI generated. And so we are digging into that right now. We're trying to understand whether that's like a claim that we can make, but it appears that that is a trend that we're seeing right now. So we are seeing penalties. We are also, and I'm not sure if we've touched on this before, but like in our pre-interview, but we had basically a client come to us and say, hey, I just bought a site and like I bought it for a lot of money and it was monetized through all sorts of different ad platforms. And so bought the site, made the transfer. When I went to reapply for like Google AdSense, they denied me. And this client was like, man, we had like 30,000, like our traffic was like 30,000 users a month. Like, what the heck? This is crazy. Our content is ranking. I don't understand why we would get disapproved by Google AdSense. And anybody who has a site knows how easy it is typically to get approved. Throw a couple blogs up there, have them indexed, and Bob's your uncle. So we did some digging and we scanned this person's site for like plagiarism. And then we just scanned the whole site for AI generated content. And there were like a handful of articles in the top 10 ranking articles. I think there were like 3 or 4 of them that were AI, like flagged as 100% AI generated. So what we did was we actually like unpublished them just to see. And we said, hey, reapply in a few days. And so this client reapplied, and sure enough, they got
Interesting.
yeah, sure enough, they got accepted right away. So that to us shows a pretty strong correlation between Google AdSense denying your website because of AI generated content.
So it's interesting. Google seemed fine with the AI generated content in terms of ranking those pages, but not so much that they wanted to run ads against it, probably because they don't want to be supporting millions of websites that just have AI generated content up there, or obviously AI generated content at least.
Right. So, which indicates to us that Google has the ability to detect whether AI was used to create content.
Do you think it'll be like an arms race, like tools like yours are going to be able to detect ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, but then maybe 5, it's going to be harder to. And then you create the next iteration of your software that catches up on 5, and then the next iteration. Like, is it going to be that kind of cat and mouse game going forward?
It has been since the get-go of this thing, right? Like they're just getting better and better every single day. And we actually have an entire, it's called our red team. So we have a red team made up of engineers, and they like machine learning engineers. And their whole role is to try to beat our AI detector. And when they beat it, we're able to then train our model against that to make it better and better and more robust. And so it's their whole job is to get ahead of it so that we're playing cat and mouse, but figuring it out first and not allowing somebody else or another competitor or another tool to figure it out before us. So that's like we have 5 or 6 people whose full-time job it is to do that.
You mentioned earlier, I think I heard you say basically that your software, one of the things that it can do is you can kind of be creating your content in your software. It sounds like will monitor my writing so that it can say, yeah, Rich spent 4, 6, 8 hours on this blog post. There were tons of edits. This was obviously done by a human being, stamp of approval. Do I have that part right?
Yeah. And so that would indicate like, hey, if you run this through Originality and it flags you as like potentially using AI to generate that piece of content, then you have proof that it wasn't, right? And so that's kind of why we built that tool.
And I love that. But for those of us who maybe haven't used the tool and wrote a piece of content that for whatever reason gets flagged, not necessarily by your tool, but by some other tool, what tips do you have for content creators to make content that would pass muster? Like, what do humans bring to the table that AI can't yet that would really help humanize our content and help us out in this world that we live in today?
Spelling mistakes. Like, yeah, that's honestly like and I don't advocate for like that poor grammar and spelling, but like that is kind of what differentiates us at this point.
Imperfections,
exactly. But more casual conversational type, more casual and conversational type dialogue within your content is what we're seeing as more like human. But it sucks when you're writing like a scientific paper, and obviously you're not going to write that in a casual way, and you're going to have very like scientific language. That's where AI detectors can fall short and flag you. Like it's going to be very, very uncommon for like a review article or a review blog post to get identified or classified as AI written if it was human. Like those are pretty clear use cases that we've nailed down very, very accurately. It's more the gray areas are more sort of the scientific stuff, the medical stuff, the stuff that has a little bit more like technical language around where you can't.
And outside of the content creators that may want to be able to show their work, show that they're human to their editors or to their clients, what type of businesses come to Originality AI? What are they looking for in terms of this AI detection?
Yeah, so I would say like our biggest clients are like big content marketing agencies, and I think we did that very purposely. We speak their language. We've been in their seat before for many years. We were able to speak to that industry very, very clearly and understand the pain point from a very personal and intimate standpoint. But other companies that have come to us recently are like large publishing houses. I think we've probably all heard of instances where books are being published and they're coming out later that they're actually AI generated and that they might be giving out dangerous advice. One is coming very clearly to me right now. There was actually a ebook. It was a mushroom. It was I think a cookbook.
Foraging book. Yeah.
The foraging book. Yeah, we made a comment on that actually with The Guardian. And basically it was this foraging book that gave really, really dangerous advice to people about cooking with mushrooms. And those have like real societal consequences, right? And so big publishing houses are really scared to inadvertently publish something that's AI generated. But so the whole process around what actually ends up getting published is changing. And there's a lot more safeguarding that process at this point. So hopefully we'll see less of that. But yeah, we've seen a lot of issues in recent times with that stuff.
All right. For people who want to learn more about you, Madeleine, or learn more about Originality AI, where can we send them?
Yeah, you can send them to our website, originality.ai. We've also got a really great LinkedIn page where we share all sorts of case studies that we're working on. And yeah, we're also on Twitter, on Facebook, all sorts of places. TikTok.
Awesome. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes. Madeleine, thank you so much for coming by and sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
For a full transcript of today's episode, as well as AI-created show notes, head on over to our website at theagentsofchange.com/512. I've heard from a couple of you over the past couple of weeks who are looking to set a new course for your marketing in 2024, and we're looking for some outside advice on how to get there, which is why you reached out to me and we had a nice conversation. Well, if you weren't one of those two people, don't be shy. I still have a few slots left open for a free 30-minute consult to talk about your business, your challenges, your opportunities, and how you can best market yourselves in the coming year. If you're interested, just fill out the contact form at the Agents of Change website or at the Take Flight website. That's takeflight.com, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm The Rich Brooks, and let's get the ball started. Take advantage of this. After all, agents of change don't sit on their hands. They take action.
Don't miss another thrilling episode of the Agents of Change podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform.